Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another ITY video. Today I'm at the Kaspersky Cybersecurity event. I'm with Vitaly Kamluk. He is the director of GREAT, that is the Global Research and Analysis of Threats? Team. Yep, there we go. Sorry. And you're based in Singapore, but welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So look, I thought I'd just ask you to tell us what is a day in the life of a cybersecurity researcher like in 2017?
All right. Well, it's something very, very exciting, I would say, because it's something that is hard to predict. Every new day brings some new research, some new news that you couldn't expect yesterday. So it's always a challenge. There is no fixed knowledge that can help you survive. You either adapt fast or you just don't do this.
Sure.
So yeah, we have to deal with new languages, new technologies, new architectures, new operating systems every now and then. That's why it is so exciting. You always have to learn.
Must be like a rush of adrenaline. Yes, we've captured something new.
Well, when you start solving a problem, and
Yeah.
we have to crack a lot of complicated logical problems, you cannot actually answer whether it is solvable at all. And of course you experience a lot of adrenaline and a lot of excitement once you crack that problem, once you manage to do what was not seemingly possible at that time.
Or discovered something that no one else has discovered as yet.
That's right.
Yeah. So look, you spoke about the history of cyber espionage in the APAC region. So can you just give us the short version of what your presentation is like? I will have the full version of what you spoke about alongside this video. So, but you know, some of the highlights from your talk, some of the things that really we want people
a little
to.
bit hard, but
Yeah.
well, if you want to summarize, I would say what I showed today was a little bit of history, like looking back how the cyber espionage developed over in the Western world and the eastern part of the world, and I compared them, which actually showed that the Western countries, they started cyber espionage activity much earlier, which means they have developed quite good potential already. And looking at the Asian attackers, they started later. That's why they're still now in like the earlier stages of development. One good indicator was the cyber sabotage attacks, which are not exactly related to cyber espionage, but in the same domain that we call overall big information war. And that is not a very frequent event when you see cyber sabotage attacks. One major that happened in the Western countries was Stuxnet worm that actually managed to get out of the matrix and destroy a physical object in our real world that was unique of its kind, and one of the first that did major harm to physical objects. Before that, there were others that would, let's say, delete or destroy system, making them unbootable. They were coming from some of the Western world developers. Still, Stuxnet was the major. Speaking of the Asian attackers, there are similar. For example, the Lazarus group used over to destroy systems.
That's Lazarus, the North Koreans.
Lazarus or Lazarus,
Yeah.
yes. You can. There are different spelling, different pronunciation of this,
sure.
yes. But it's known to be responsible for the attacks on Sony Pictures Entertainment, which in the end, like they wiped their machines, many machines, making them totally unusable. They were also behind, it is believed so, they are behind the Dark Soul operation on South Korean banks and media companies, which also paralyzed the whole industry for several days.
I mean, in the media, we hear a lot now about the cyber sabotage potential threats against, you know, taking down power grids, and when we saw hospitals paralyzed with the WannaCry. But I mean, presumably you're predicting that these things that we've heard about in the media is actually now going to start becoming a lot more real.
Well, definitely it's not going back anytime soon, because these cyber attacks, they are cheap, they can be done from any location, they provide you a good level of, you know, anonymizing your real location. Then you can put some false flags and blame and accuse someone else.
Yeah.
This is just very convenient for the attackers. And as far as computers are used everywhere, and wherever they are not used, they will be used soon, it just makes it super super convenient for the attackers to leverage this IT infrastructure to deliver this malware to those locations.
So given that you were looking at the history of these attacks, and given that these attacks are going to become more prevalent, I mean, what mistakes from history are we repeating? What advice would you give to governments and companies to say, look, you know, this is coming, but you can you can ride out the storm by doing this, and this, and, you know, also giving Kaspersky a call?
It's quite apparent that what we are seeing now is the arms race. So something that I didn't catch, I'm too young, the Cold War, I think it's pretty much the similar situation. Countries started accumulating this potential, building their own offensive technologies in secret, and now they're competing one to another with all these resources that we make public or private. They learn about each other and then they try to do better and faster and stronger and more powerful and more universal. So this is very, very unfortunate. And I think we shall stop this. I think this is not helping the humanity at all, because what happens next is just separation of the world, further increase of the distance and lack of cooperation between countries and the governments, escalation of conflicts from the virtual space to the real domain, like to the physical domain, military actions as a result, a lot of tensions and probably even intolerance between nations. This is not good. So
what's the way that companies and governments and countries can mitigate these things, try and protect themselves?
Well, how can they mitigate? They have to talk to each other. Definitely, they have to talk to each other and clarify the interests. Like there is a way to live peacefully, and there is a way to find benefits for all parties, to be partners rather than competitors. But it's up to politicians. Unfortunately, we're just a private company. What we display, what we discover is coming from factual based data like malware, cyber attacks. We discover and show the facts, but it's up to politicians to take decisions and change the strategy of the country, or to do some negotiations and discuss the problem. Right now, unfortunately, this is not happening, and this is quite worrisome. What happens instead is that we are getting backfire, but what we discover, because of course we disappointed a lot of serious organizations by our findings, and they're trying to now fire at our side, like shoot the messenger, which is bad idea. It was always so.
But I mean, at least you're exposing that which needs to be exposed, and encouraging other companies and organizations to do the same, be at that same level of efficiency at disclosing what you discover.
Right. Well, when I joined the company, within a few years, there was this new motto which I could barely understand back in the days. It was like, we're here to save the world. And I was trying to understand, like, how are we going to save the world?
When did we become a Bruce Willis movie?
So it was like from the Hollywood movies, how are we going to save the world? Now I understand that we work for all countries at the same time, and no one in particular. We're trying to warn people about the threats, to educate them, to make them be prepared for the attacks, to make them stronger regardless of their race, of their religion, of their location, of their culture. We do that equally. That's our mission, and I kind of got used to it, and now I believe in the same thing, because we are not supporting any particular country regardless of what people say. We are doing that neutrally and equally to all. So that is our mission, that will remain our mission, and we think that we're good at this and we can be helpful to keep peace. We just need a little bit of attention from the politicians and the governments to hear us, because the future right now is not having good predictions, unfortunately, due to all these tensions and balkanization of the world.
So on that note, any thoughts on how the cybersecurity and this arms race will evolve over the next few years, beyond what you've already said?
How will they evolve?
I guess the cat and mouse game continues, and it gets sneakier. And
well, right now we've seen just a few very rare attacks that were related to the cyber sabotage, and this is what scares me the most, because when the malware starts leaving their natural habitat, the cyber domain, and will start interfering more with the physical domain, this is where serious problems may appear.
People will lose lives.
The problem is that if there are no researchers to investigate this and to discover that the malware was involved in particular disaster, we may never know the true reasons.
Well, the bad guys will operate with impunity.
Exactly, and we may never know the true reasons, like the train crashed or the plane gone missing.
We saw photos in your presentation today.
Yes.
And you have to
or
ask the
some
question.
things exploded and people died. We may never have answers for this unless we have experts to do the proper analysis and investigation of potential application of malware in that particular incident.
So one question I always like to ask the people that I'm interviewing, and we sort of change tack as we get to the second last question, but that's always to ask, what's the best piece of advice that you've received over the years from a teacher, a mentor, an employer, whatever, whoever it might be, that's helped you get where you are today?
Professionally?
Whatever that might be, whether in life or professionally, you know, and if there's more than one piece of advice you'd like to share, then
okay,
go for it.
Well, probably don't be afraid of difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
That's the major thing. Be persistent.
Yeah.
Like whenever you see a choice to pick up an easy problem, simple to solve, or a hard problem that is hard to crack, go for the later one. You know, pick up the hard one, because it will make you stronger in the end. So don't be lazy.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. So, do you have any final messages for ITWire viewers and readers, and for your current and future Kaspersky customers?
Be a little bit more paranoid when you are on the internet, on the cyberspace, because sometimes people forget that internet is a dangerous place. It is as dangerous as, you know, unknown corner of a distant city that you are visiting for the first time in your life.
Yeah.
Would you believe a stranger that comes to you on the street and asks you to follow him to show you something interesting?
Yeah.
So why do you do so online? Why
That's
do
it.
you follow all these links and advices and, you know, strangers that come to you and ask you to open an attachment or click the link? Don't do that. Be a little bit more paranoid and stay safe.
It reminds me of that well-known internet cliche that just because Abraham Lincoln said it was true on the internet doesn't mean that it is.
Good one.
Vitaly, thank you very much for your time, and best of luck for the future.
Thank you.